Okay, so moving on, let's look at assigning bus inputs to audio tracks. When you go to create an audio track, you can assign its input to no input at all, any physical input on your audio interface, mono or stereo, or you can assign that audio track to receive from a bus. And you can just do things like this. It just obviously allows you to record the output of any bus, right? So let's show a few things we can do with it. Here I've got a couple of synths, right? This one is playing this pattern, right? And then this is playing this pattern. Now there's a delay on this, but if we look at the channel for the track, it's just an Alchemy synth. So the delay is built into the Alchemy because there's no other effects. Let's just turn the delay down. Okay, it's got a little bit of reverb now, that could be adjusted. But anyway, there's the synth with no delay now. So I've got the two synths playing here. Now, yeah, if we go to the mixer, the two synths are routed to their default output. There's their output slot there. They're both routed to the final stereo out, so you could argue that you could solo them or mute everything else and just bounce down the stereo output to create a recording of those two synths blended together. But I'm just going to do it different. I'm going to get the two synths here, select their channels, and instead of routing them to the final stereo out, I'm going to route them to first available group bus, which is bus 1. And the auxiliary return here is created receiving on that bus. So the two synths are now being routed to this group bus, and then the signal from here goes to the final stereo output. So let's retitle this synth mix. It's the two synths, and they arrive at this group bus here. Right. And then we can assign that as the input to record for a track. So let's make a new track, new audio track, receiving on that group bus, bus 1, the synth mix. Okay, and then to hear it, put input monitoring on, and we can solo it. And this track is receiving from the group bus that the two synths are routed to. So on this track's input, we hear the two synths. Right, okay, and we'll just record that. Let's record it. There it is, there's the two synths recorded to a stereo file blended together. Okay, and then you can do all sorts of things with this. You could try reversing it. You could try offsetting it. Let's offset it by a 16th. And let's put some EQ on it and take out the bottom end a bit. Okay, so we just bounce the two synths down to this file by recording the output from the bus that the two synths are routed to, and now we just offset it and EQ'd it a bit, and it's adding some interest to the pattern. This stereo file of the two synths playing but offset by 16th is creating a kind of delay effect for the two synths. When that delay is then EQ'd, because this file is acting as a delay, I can offset it against the originals by however many divisions or how much distance I want. We could try reversing it just to see what it sounds like. So let's functions reverse. Hear that? That's interesting as well. Let's undo that. Undo reverse. So we'll leave it just as it is, like EQ'd thin. This is it. EQ'd thin and blended in with the originals, but we're offsetting it by about a 16th. So it's kind of these are offset back in time against the originals, which is sort of fattening that thing up and giving it this sort of weird delay type effect. Okay, so let's go back to our mixer, and the two synths here are still routed to this group bus. So on this group bus now, let's put a reverb. We can do it two ways. I've routed the two synths to this group bus by sending their output, the physical outputs of the channels, to the input of this group bus. That's one way of doing it. Or we can route these back to their original output, the final stereo output, and set up an auxiliary send on both the channels for the two synths. In either way, it's going to have the same effect both times. Right, we don't need this synth mix channel anymore because there's nothing being routed to it now, so let's get rid of it. So what I'm doing now is the two synths, they're being routed to the group bus the same as before, but now they're being routed to the group bus via the auxiliary sends rather than the output of the channels. So I send out as much of the two synths to this auxiliary return, this group bus, receiving on bus 2. Okay, so the two synths are arriving here now, but they're being sent out to from their send, so I can balance how much of each I want to hear. So they're both arriving at this stereo channel. Okay, and on this I'm going to put a reverb. Okay, I'm going to put a space designer and set it to a small hall like that. Okay, so the two synth channels are sending out their outputs via auxiliary sends to this auxiliary return. And when the signal from the two synths blended together arrives at this stereo channel, it then passes through the reverb. Now we need to send the output of this auxiliary return to a fresh auxiliary return, which will receive the two synths with the reverb on, leaving this channel. Okay, so I'm going to assign this channel on its output to the next available bus, bus 5. Okay, and this is, there it is. And so the two synths here, we're sending out their signal from the auxiliary sends. Their two signals arrive at this channel on that bus, the send bus, bus 2, then pass through the reverb. So from this point onwards, the mix of the two synths has got the reverb on, and then that is being sent out to this auxiliary return, where we hear the two synths arriving at the input of this channel on bus 5 with the reverb added. Okay, now we're going to record the output of this group bus, which is the two synths blended together with reverb. So make a new audio track, receiving on that bus 5. And let's record this input. This is it. Let's have a listen to it soloed on the track. So we're going to record that reverb. Okay, let's do it. There it is. There's the reverb as a stereo recording. And I'm going to reverse this. Reverse the reverb. Reverse it. See what happens. Well, that's an interesting sound. Okay, and then let's bring in these drums now. Basic drum beat. Okay, then we're going to record the output of the group bus for these drums. Okay, there's the drum final group bus. It's a stack, so you can open it up in the mixer. All the outputs from the individual drum channels all arrive at this final channel, this group bus. Okay, and the track with the drum pattern on it is the track for the group bus. So the whole kit arrives on this group bus here. Right, so we'll record this group bus to an audio track. In other words, we're recording the output of this group bus, the drum beat that you hear there. We're going to record it. So make another track, receiving on that group bus. There we are, bus 3 after party. So this new track here is receiving the output from the drums. And let's record it. There it is. We recorded the drums in stereo. They're exactly the same as the drums coming from the actual instrument. There's the recording of them, and there's the original. Okay, and then the recording here. Let's open it and reverse it. could do all sorts of effects and things, you know, but let's just reverse it and blend that in with the original drums. And then the reverb here, that's the recorded reverb of the two synths, which is reversed, right? Oh, sorry, solo it. So that's the reverse reverb. And let's flange it. I'll put a flanger on the channel for that track. Give it some flange. So now this reverse reverb blended in with the synths, because it's the reverb of the synths reversed. It's got some flange on it. And it's just sounding interesting. If we just take the 3 tracks with the 3 recorded bus outputs, the mix down of the 2 synths offset by a 16th, the reverb from the 2 synths reversed and flanged, and the beat, the output from the drum machine, are recorded and reversed and blended in. We mute all these 3. This is the original 2 synths and the drums, and it's quite dry and clinical. We blend in these 3 record bus outputs with their different settings. Makes the whole thing sound way more interesting. So you can just do all sorts of creative things like that, yeah. If you think about it, you know, this will work equally if you're working on guitar tracks. You can have, you know, 4 layered guitars panned to a stereo bus, and you could record the output from those, and then mess around with that recorded version, offsetting it in different ways against the original 4 tracks. The stereo recording of the 4 tracks bounced to the bus, yeah, you know, and recorded from that bus. So yeah, you know, you can do all sorts of things like that. You just got to think of the creative things you can do with it. It allows you to record the output of any bus to an audio track, and often that's a lot simpler than faffing around with, you know, bouncing down and all those kind of things. And there's the police again. Every time I've gone to do this video, this is the 3rd take, the police have gone past. So now we've recorded the outputs from our group buses to these files. We've got them fixed as files. It's so much easier. Yeah, we don't need these effects to be on tracks. We don't need the buses to be in the mixer. We've routed things to buses, recorded these various files from those buses, a recording of the drum kit, which we've reversed, a recording of the reverb reversed and flanged, and just the 2 synths just offset a bit. So all the routing for those buses, we don't need it anymore. So the 2 group buses here can go. We don't need them. They're not being used anymore. Just delete them. Delete anyway. And the 2 auxiliary sends on the 2 synth channels, they don't need to be there. So now we've really simplified everything. We've got rid of a lot of resources that were being used, and now all we've got is 2 basic synth channels. There's no effects or EQ or anything on them. The drums, well, they've got all their effects on. That's part of the kit. And then 3 audio tracks with the 3 recordings from the buses on, and all we got on 2 of those is just an EQ and a flanger. So we're really, really conserving resources here. There's no Space Designer reverbs running or anything heavy duty taking up resources, and we have the recordings of the bus outputs, which we can do different things with, you know. I mean, you could take this synth recording here of the 2 synths bussed together. It's going through a reverb to make it thin at the moment. Let's shift it in pitch. Put a pitch shifter on its channel and shift it up 7 semitones, a 7th. It's not working very well, is it? Not at all. didn't work so well, but you know, you just try things. Let's take that off. Let's try pitching up the reverb, the reverse reverb here. Let's put a pitch shifter on that. Just experiment. Pitch shifter, you know, nothing was ever lost by experimenting, and some of the, all down through recordings, different things you hear on tracks that are real standout things, a lot of the time appeared because somebody went, oh, let's just mess around and see what happens. So we're pitching up the reverb with a 70% mix, up 7 semitones, up a seventh. Which sounds a bit odd, but it adds a little extra something. You can just try all sorts of things. Let's say, for example, here is there's our reverse reverb, right? Let's put a gate on it instead of the pitch shifter. It's got the flanger on it. Let's put a gate on it. Where are we? Dynamics. Noise gate. So we've got a gate across the channel for this reverse reverb and flange. It's the reverb from the two synths, reversed and flanged. And now let's go to the mixer, open up the drum stack and see. Where's our hi-hat? So there's the hi-hat channel. Okay, let's the hi-hats go to their own group bus because it's a drum machine designer. Go away. So their group bus, the hi-hat bus there. Well, let's try it. So there's the track with the reverse reverb with the flange on, and it's got a gate across it. Let's open that and assign the side chain to the hi-hat bus from the after party kit. So that gated reversed reverb, reverse reverb is now being gated from the hi-hat. It may not work, but let's just try it. Let's mute everything else and just hear that with the synths, just to see what it sounds like. We need the drums open, don't we, to trigger the gate. Okay, what I'll do is it's not very loud, this recording I made, so I can either open it and change its gain in the file editor. It's not that very loud, so let's just quickly normalise it to bring up its level. Yeah, that's it's fine. So it's louder now. So that reversed and flange reverb is now being gated from the hat, which makes an interesting thing. Let's bring in that reversed drum beat here. Yeah, that's quite an interesting sound. And let's bring in the offset synths, offset to 16th. Yeah, you know what I mean? So you could just experiment with things, but the whole point of being able to record, to choose a bus input for an audio track is you can route anything you want to buses and record that bus straight to the input of an audio track to quickly get down a recording of that bus with whatever content is on it. That provides you then a recorded region of whatever was on the bus, which can then be used in different ways independently of the originals that it came from or alongside the originals that it came from. Yeah, see what I mean? You blend the two together, or just use the bounce down version recorded off the bus and manipulate it in some way to change it. Yeah. So yeah, recording from bus outputs, it can be quite interesting if you just sit down and think, oh, what could I do, and do a bit of, experimenting. It may not work some of the time. Of course it won't always work, but this is how you come up with sounds, just experiment a bit, but being able to record from the bus outputs, record bus outputs directly to the inputs of tracks makes it very easy to quickly grab the recording from a bus to do things with that recording that results. Okay, I hope that's useful.